Hi there, this is Shauna from the Foil Fox, and I am here with another video using the wonderful Nature's Garland. I'm using the mistletoe here, as you can see. So here is that stamp set again. This is just another way. This is the third way I've used it now. So versatile. And then I'm using the Jumbo Bauble, where you can make an ornament, or you can use these beautiful bows, which is what we're going to use today. And then Jolly Snippets, which is a great stamp set that has just a zillion nice holiday sentiments. Then for the paper today, I'm going to use from the wintertime paper pack from Penny Black. And it has so many nice papers in here. And I'm going to select one of them. See, it has those nice stripes. There's so many ways you can use those, or the dots. But I'm going to use, there's one in here that is red. It also comes green, but it has words, holiday words printed on it. Here's the green version, but I'm going to use the red. And this is going to be an A2 size card. This is just a piece of watercolor paper, and then a little scrap of red. And then I have two panels. I'm going to put the dimensions right up here. That has the two panels of, this is of cold pressed watercolor paper that kind of nests into one another, and then they have matching foam backs to them. And so that's going to complete all the papers that I'm going to be using. And I put some double stick facing on the back of it so that we can just peel that off. And that I have this giant roll, as you can see here, but it also comes in a sheet. I'll put that in the supply list down below. But I'm going to start out with just that piece. I trimmed it down. I had a piece of the cold pressed watercolor paper, and I'm using three colors. I'm using archival inks again because I want them to be waterproof. I am going to be using water. You can use other inks. You can use like distress inks or any of your other dye inks, but I didn't want that when I applied water, I didn't want it to get a little blurry. I wanted to keep some really nice lines to it. So I'm using a green and a red and a brown. That's all you need, and you can choose whatever green, red, and brown you would like. I do recommend the archival, like I said. I am just I love these smaller ones because I can kind of get in there in these little small areas. I had to go over it a couple of times, but I got it in the end. And you can see I went over that a couple of times. Now I'm going to position it again, but I'm not going to stamp. Once I position it, I'm not going to stamp that very top because I don't want it to run into the first part of the mistletoe that I stamped. So I wiped it off really nicely, and now I'm just stamping that lower part. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing where I'm going to stamp the green. I might add a little bit of the brown to it, but you'll see where I use brown in a few minutes. But I'm going to then go in with that red. You can also use Tombow pens here if you want to color those to really get into that spot. I didn't mind if the red or the green kind of blended into one another, but just keep stamping until you get the image that you like. Then for the colors I'm just using three colors for the green. I'm using Rustic Wilderness, Crushed Olive, and Forest Moss. These three are all distress inks. And I'm going to start out with loosening the Crushed Olive up a little bit with water and painting them all with Crushed Olive. Then I'll go back in with the Rustic Wilderness. Love the Rustic Wilderness color. It's a great green. And then when I want to darken it up, for some of these leaves, I'll use the Forest Moss. And so I'm just going to paint these through. You don't have to spend a lot of time at these. It's just kind of simple painting. Now I'm going to do the berries. I'm using Wild Honey, Abandoned Coral, and Candied Apple. And I'm just going to color those ends, again starting with the Wild Honey on all of them. And then I'll use for the darker berries, I'll use the Candied Apple, and then for the lighter berries, use the Abandoned Coral. I do like to have some variation so they're not just, in nature, they're not all the same color. I'm also going to put just a dab of aged mahogany here. H Mahogany is a red brown, and I think it'll darken up these berries very nicely that I want extra dark, that are kind of being, covered up by some of the berries up front. So I'm just going to color these. I'm careful not to completely cover the wild honey. I do want it to kind of poke out in different places. And then I have a green Tombow brush pen, dual brush pen, and I'm just going in and sharpening up a little bit of those lines of the green. And I'm going to just kind of fiddle with the reds a little bit more, just until I get them the way I want. You see, I blot them off sometimes. I always keep a tissue in my hand when I'm doing things like this. Then I let them dry really well, and now I'm using, this is a Copic liner red, but you could even use a red ballpoint, just as long as you don't apply water later on. But I'm just, again, sharpening up those rounds, just making them a little bit more round. Same thing with my green Tombow pen, just to make it really sharp. Once that's all dry, I know this goes through pretty quickly, but I did let it dry completely. And then now I'm taking this is my die pick, and I'm punching some holes because I'm going to fussy cut this out. And those holes are invaluable when you have to get into some small spaces. But first I trim off all the excess on the outside. I just find it much easier to handle when you trim off as much paper as you can, so that you're not trying to move around this big piece. And then I just cut around it from there. And I'm going to cut some of this for you. See, I'm cutting on the inside, and see how easy it was for me to get my scissor blade in there to be able to cut. And that's because I poked those holes ahead of time. It really makes a huge difference than trying to struggle to get a hole in there. I completely cut that out, set that aside, and now I have one of those pieces. It's the smaller piece of the cold press watercolor paper that I cut out. You can use other paper if you'd like, but I really like that kind of rough texture. And I took that's one of the stamps in the Nature's Garland. Used the brown archival ink. Did not stamp, as you notice, the very tops of it because I don't want them showing. And now I've got Candied Apple, and I'm just splattering just little tiny dots of red, and then adding a few just with my brush. I'm going to go ahead and let that dry. And now I'm using that Jumbo Bauble. The Jumbo Bauble is great for using it as an ornament, but I'm just using the bow right now, and you see it cut out the bow. And now I have a white card base. This is an A2, and I've cut down that piece of pattern paper to fit the top there at 4 1/4 and 5 by 5 1/2. And I'm just going to adhere it to the top so it covers the entire top. Next, I'm going to peel off. Remember, I put that double-sided tape on there, and I'm going to stick it to the back of my big panel, my biggest panel. I'm going to stick some glue on the back of this just because I can, when I position it, I can kind of slip it around a little bit. Got a little bit too much glue, so I'll just kind of smooth that out. And then center that. And then after that's centered, I'm going to take the next one. Now this one, I need a sentiment. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball where I think I want the sentiment to be. So I'm kind of positioning everything there. And now I'm going to put it in my stamp positioner. Use one of those snippets, Be Merry, from the Jolly Snippets stamp set. Stamping it with red archival ink. And then we'll set that aside till we put the back on it. We want to make sure the inks are really dry before you turn them over and start applying things to it and putting the foam back and that, because you don't want to smear it. And then I'm putting some glue, and we're going to put this and center this down. So we're going to get some really nice dimension on this card. I put some of these foam dots, these foam squares, on the back of the mistletoe, and now I'm just going to apply the bow. Bow's so cute. That's a wonderful addition in that Jumbo Bauble. And then I already have the sentiment, and so I am good to go. And I just really think this is just very sweet, and it has this nice pattern. Here is a closer look of it. You can see the background kind of peeks through, gives it a little bit more dimension, and then with that mistletoe popped up, it just kind of completes the picture. So I was really happy with the way this turned out. I hope that you enjoyed the project. If you did, please give us a thumbs up, and we would just love it if you would subscribe if you haven't already. Then a few things I used was the Nature's Garland, the Jumbo Bauble, and the Jolly Snippets, all of them penny black, but everything I use, all the papers, everything is all included in our supply list. You can click the link down below, and it'll take you right to that supply list. I want to thank you again for being here. I will have a new video soon, and I hope to see you then. Bye.